Hello again, and it's time for another project. Nice small one today. We're basically going to make a nice, easy Christmas decoration using this angel fairy that I cut out off of a Christmas card. Literally just sorting through, found some cards like so. That one was attached on there originally, or similar. It had all crazy hair coming out of here, so I literally just cut it all out with a pair of scissors. Nothing fantastic there. Snip, 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 snip. Went all the way around, cut it out. And that's our little pattern for today. Now I've literally just put it onto this white oak, like so. I used a pencil and just draw around it all. Nice and easy so far, no problem. And that just gives you a nice outline to follow. Once I did that, I just went freehand and just went around it all again. Similar shape, obviously, near as we want it. It doesn't have to be too perfect. And that will be our little frame. And the idea, we're going to route out all this middle section literally by 3mm, allowing that to be put inside. And then we're going to coat it all nicely with some clear resin. Find a little cord to hang it up with, and that will be our little decoration done. Obviously we'll have some linseed oil and a bit of clear spray before we put the resin in. Okay, so we've drawn around it. There's our little template we're going to use today, nice and quickly. The bits I'm going to use, for me as always, are these little CNC bits. Those are 10 and 15s. They come in 20 and 30 degrees. I think they go right up to 60. I'm going to use a 20 today. They are quite small. They have a Dremel size shaft, a 3.175mm, like so. And they will fit in a Dremel, no problem whatsoever. Just get that there. I'm going to go for it or not, maybe not. There, you can just about see that, how sharp that is. And these are perfect for doing all your line work and stuff. Because I do have a small shaft on, you require a collet, an adapter reducer collet. This is a 6.35mm. And you just slot that into the silver end like so. That has now got a 1/4 inch shaft on it, 6.35mm. And that will fit your router, no problem. If you're going to use a Dremel with the router attachment, you can just put it in like that. You don't need any adapter. And the idea is we'll pop this into our router. We'll set it to about 3mm, which is the thickness of that end piece, remember. I made a little gauge like this. I will put that into the router and set it to that one. I know that's plenty deep enough to get our little template in, remember, our little pattern, and gives enough room for the resin to cover it on top. Once we've gone around the line, nice and easy, just that inner line there, all the way around there. Once we've done that, we'll swap this over for end milling bits. These are another bits that I like to use regular. These are fantastic for clearing out with. We can go for the biggest one because it's quite an easy, simple one to take out. They do come with this plastic barrier on now. If you get them without the barrier on, it doesn't matter, they're exactly the same piece. And we just slot that straight into there, right up to that plastic barrier. Pop that back into the router. We'll set it to the same depth as before, 3mm like so. And literally do all that clearing out. Once we've cleared it out, we'll cut it out on a scroll saw. We'll talk about that nearer the time. General sanding up, bit of tidying up. Then we'll pop the linseed on. Nice spray clear varnish just to seal it all first. And then we'll pop that inside. After I put a protection on this, I'll show you that later on. And then we'll pop this resin on. And this little project should be about finished. Okay, we'll leave the paper side of things out just for now. And we'll concentrate on getting our little template done. Okay, so we'll pop the CNC bit into the router. Set it to our 3mm. Like so. And we'll start routing this one out. Okay, just before we do start routing out, you can see for that we've got our CNC bit in there nicely. There we go. Remember, we used our little gauge. You can purchase proper gauges if you want to, but that one's set at 3mm, and that just slides across here nicely. So we know we can set that up at the same one. But just a quick one, if you're routing out on edges towards things and you don't want your router bit to get a bit tippy over like so, because you are coming towards the edge, you can basically just find a piece of wood of the same thickness and just have that there as a support. And when you come in to do that, you can happily rest that router on both pieces of wood, no problem, just because you are towards the end. I don't need it personally myself, but for anybody that's new, especially if you have a small base on your router, as you come to do that end piece, like I say, you might just find it a bit wobbly. So a bit of scrap wood, and you can quite happily use that for support. Alright, let's start routing this one out. Right, that's as easy as it was. Literally a minute to cut around that one. Nice and small little project, this one. Now all we need to do is remove the inner section of this. Like I said previously, I'm going to use these mill end bits. They're a little bit small, but they're good to get used to, and they do clean out really well. And it's just a simple case of sliding that out like so. You get quite a few projects out of one of those CNC bits, and popping that one into there, pop it back into the router. You notice I've took a little section out there just so we know we've got the right depth. You can pop it into there, set your router bit, and you know the right depth, or you can pop it back onto our little homemade charger. Now there is bigger bits, and on the last couple of projects I've done similar to these, but I didn't do a video. I use these straight flush bits. We maybe should have popped one of these on today just to show you, but we'll stick with the end milling bits, and they're fantastic. That just fits in there nicely, and that will take all that out in seconds. So we'll see how we go on. We'll start off with these end milling bits just so I can show you them in action, as we say, and then we might just throw that one on at the end just to show you how quick it brings it out. Okay, we'll start off with the end milling bits. Right, you can see from that's coming out nicely, no problem. And that's definitely enough for what we need today. So you could do all that with that end milling bit, no problem whatsoever. It would take a little bit longer, but there's no rush, just enjoy yourself. I'm just going to pop on one of these straight flush bits just to show you how quick it removes it. Just the same, it's just a case of finding the bit that works for you. If this was quite a detailed bit, you wouldn't get away with those because it could be quite delicate. So, but this one's quite easy. So we'll pop it on and just remove the rest of this. Right, so we've put our metric straight flush bit in. I will leave descriptions in the title to all the links and stuff of bits that we want. That goes in there nicely like so. There is no adapter collet because it's got a 1/4 inch shaft on it. We've set it to the same depth as the bottom section. So now it's just a case of removing the top half of the angel. We'll do that now. Right, that straight flush bit, remove that, no problem whatsoever. It might have been easier doing the full thing with that. But I just want to basically show you the end milling bits that I use on my more detailed projects, if that makes sense. Okay, so we've got our general shape going there. Now I like to go around with a flexi cable on the end of a Dremel with a nice flat engraving bit. If you just eBay or Amazon, put in engraving bits, you'll get a packet of 30 of these for next to nothing. I like to get one with a nice flat edge on like so. There we go. And that's just enough to go in there and give it a general tidying up. And any modifications we'll need, I can just find our little template. If it just seems a little bit tight in places, we can literally just go around with the Dremel and just make it slightly bigger. It doesn't have to be a perfect tight fit, remember. Okay, so general tidy up, and then we'll get onto the scroll saw and cut this one out. Right, that was just a little quick tidy up. We don't have to focus too much on the backer, remember, we're going to cover all that with our template. So now we're going to cut it out on a scroll saw. I like to use spiral blades. There is 3 types of basic blade. I'll just show you quickly. One is your pin blade. You'll find them more on your cheaper, more basic saws, if that makes sense. They have a pin at either end, and they will pin onto a bracket at the top, like so. Always have the blade facing towards you. It wants to be smooth on the way down and rough on the way up. That way you know you've got your blade in the right way. This would cut this one out no problem, because it's quite an easy project. If you're going to do something a bit more delicate, we need a lot of pilot holes to actually put the blade inside the wood, if that makes sense. You can get these pinless blades. I mean, they're really thin. You can just about see that. No pins on whatsoever. And they're on your more fancier saws. They would go in there like so. And you'll have a clamp at top and bottom to hold it in place. Same again, teeth facing, smooth on the way down, rough on the way up. I like to use spiral blades personally. The teeth on a spiral blade are spiraled literally the full length of the blade. Good thing about these, you can cut in any direction. So you could start there on this, work down to the bottom, go across and back up the other side. Whereas with the other 2 blades, you'd have to feed it in, then turn it and feed it and turn it and feed it and turn it. Perfect for these little projects, but when you're doing a big piece, spirals are the way for me. You will either hate them or love them. I just love them personally. Okay, we've got our spiral blade in the scroll saw. We've got a nice ping ping sound. We'll literally just cut this one out quickly. A general sanding over, just around the edges up. And then we'll be on to the linseed and spray. And finally, we'll get onto the resin side of things. Okay, let's cut this one out. Right, we've got our basic shape now. Now, I'm no scroller by any stretch of the imagination, and it's not perfect, but that's what sandpaper is for. I like to get a nice sanding drum on the flexi shaft, bit of sandpaper, give it a general tidy up, just to round off those edges slightly, and then we're ready for the linseed oil. We'll do that next. Right, that's enough sanding down and clearing up for me. You notice there I just drilled a little hole in the top just to put a bit of thread on there. We can hang it on the tree or wherever it's going to go. I wouldn't be overly concerned about any scrapings or burn marks or not the back piece not being fantastic. Remember, we are going to cover that completely when we pop our little fairy back inside. Just before that, and it's just a personal thing again, you can use stains, paints, you can just leave it as it is. But I like to use a bit of boiled linseed on mine. And it's just enough to darken that wood down. You'll see we'll put a little bit on now just to show you. And this white oak comes up really nice. Literally just brush it on. It doesn't matter how quick and rough it is. As long as we get all them sides done. Like so. Get right in there. I'll even do the back on this piece as well, to be honest. You can see the differences going there. Show you quickly. You can see how nice and dark that wood's gone. That's boiled linseed oil, raw linseed oil, tungsten oil. There's plenty of different types here. Danish oil is another one that springs to mind. So it's just find one that suits you. I'll give it a nice good soaking like so. Quick wipe off with a cloth. We'll put it out in the sunshine for a couple of hours just to dry out. And then I will spray a nice clear, crystal clear on top, just to finish it off first. Now the reason we spray on our crystal clear first is one, to seal inside the wood here. Should be using coloured resin. Where we route it out, on certain woods, and I've never known issues on this type, or pine, or the fencing wood, the resin could leak into the side walls, so you won't get a nice crisp finish. But on this one, totally no problem. So once that's nice and dry, I throw a bit of crystal clear on top, just to seal it all. The reason I do it first as well is, if you spray on top of your resin afterwards, it can send your resin really dull. So you've got to basically treat this as a finished piece. So imagine it's been finished and you're spraying your final clear varnish on just to finish it off. That way you'll have no mishaps with your resin going dull and you won't even be able to see through it. So we treat it all first, getting those little sidewalls down there. Okay, we get the general idea. We'll let this dry, spray our clear on, and then we'll go inside where it's not so dusty and finish the resin side of things. Right, that's all our surround nicely done now. It's hard to see inside. We've come indoors. We have got a little bit of shine on there, and that's plenty enough for what we need. Now just before we put that inside there, like so, we need to seal it with something. Now I've done certain projects where I've not bothered. I can just show you quickly. This was a photograph, and I literally just poured the resin straight over the top. Now that worked out fine. That's actually a Pringles lid. That was no problem whatsoever. I put it on photographs where the inks have just all dissolved into each other. And I've also done it on paper, printed paper. This is basically what we're going for today. Similar to this. And that's just standard printed paper. As you can see from there, something like that. But it does pay you to seal it with something. I have poured it on this without anything on, and it worked in a fashion, but it went a little bit transparent. So for sealing options, we're just going to play a little bit safe. This is cardboard. I've never covered this before. You might get away with putting the resin straight on top and have no issues. It might just all go dissolve into each other and be a total mess. So to play safe, we need to seal it. Now you could use just sellotape, strip of sellotape over the front and the back. Make sure you do the back at the same time, because the resin will get underneath, soak in the back, and you've lost the effect of what you're after. So sellotape's an option. If you had a laminator, you can pop it through a laminator, laminate the front and the back, and then cut it out afterwards, no problem. I've heard some folk use Mod Podge before. You want to brush some of that on it, front and back, let it dry. That should seal it the same. I personally not use that one. I like to use clear book covering. You get this really cheap, and it comes on a roll like that, and it is nice and clear. I actually used it on this one over here, and it worked fantastic. Certainly no problem. So I've cut my two little bits. So I have two here. The one for the back. We're basically going to peel that back off. It takes some doing. I'm going to do it off camera because it's really fiddly to peel the corners off. So we'll stick that onto there basically nice and clear. And then we'll stick one over the top like so. And literally just cut round it again with the scissors. Just leaving that little edge all the way around. And then we'll pop it in there. And then we'll get onto the resin sides. And I'll come back and I've sealed it with these two. Okay, you can see I've sealed that front and back. So obviously that's nice and secure now. So all I've got to do literally just, we'll cut around this. Just leave that little lip all the way around. Just enough so it's still sealed. So I'll go around this, you get the general idea. I'll do that quickly just to show you. So we can cut all this off, do a nice knitted job just like that, and that should be enough to push that back in there. I'll cut this off quickly and then we'll come back. Right, so we've got our little protection on front and back. We've cut all the way around, just leaving that little lip on, and that's just enough, hopefully, to stop the resin affecting the printed out template. So what I like to do is literally just put on a couple of dabs of super glue. Now you might not need it, but I just, something like that, quick and fast. I think that's just going to hold that template in place. Now, it doesn't really need it, it's just me being over the top. You could actually mix a bit of resin, put a bit of resin on the bottom, stick that into it, and then top up with resin itself. So find the way that suits you. Now it's just a simple case of getting that in there. It's quite tight as this one. Remember, we've got that polythene on now, so that's made it a little bit more tighter than we wanted it. But that's gone in there fine, that's no problem. A couple of seconds for that super glue to work. Took it all in nicely. Doesn't matter about the plastic going up the edges there, because remember we're going to fill all this in with resin, so you won't see any of that. Okay, we'll pop that to one side. That's ready for filling now. So for resin, I'm using craft resin today. Comes in two parts, A being your resin and B being your hardener. Now this craft resin, quite new to this is me. I would normally use a different type of resin, but I'm trying different things out. And you mix it 1 to 1. So you could have 2 containers if you wanted to, 2 cups. Mark off 1/4 inch, mark off 1/4 inch. You've got both the same, mix them in together, you're good to go. Or I like just using scales on this one. Obviously if you haven't got scales, you could mark it on the cup like I've just said. So it's literally just a simple case, popping that on there, set it to 0. We're pouring this to what we want. I want to go for 100 of each. Somebody's banging away outside. Let's go 120. That's going to be enough. So that's literally just about 120 of the A. We'll set it to 0. And now I'll do obviously 120 of the B. Mix them both together and then we can start pouring. I'll continue with this and come back later when we've given it a nice mix. Okay, you can see from that we've mixed our resin up. Always follow instructions. They do vary from 3 minutes to 4 minutes mixing time. That's just going to be a case of filling this up. We're getting as much as we can, without going over the top, and hopefully we'll seal it round nicely with the resin. Okay, let's pop it in and see what happens. I like to get a little cocktail stick. We use this little plastic spoons today, and I'll just help it move along like so. Get into all those bits like so. You can also pick the item up and just gentle rock back and forward, and that will run into each section that you need. Okay, we'll level this off. Excuse me. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, it's hard to see from there, but I don't have the best lighting. Literally just what's up in the kitchen. But you can more see just a quick shine there. We've got that all nicely covered with resin. Now all we need to do is go over it with a lighter, just quickly. There will be little air bubbles, and you can do this every 2 or 3 minutes. Just skim over the top like that, and you will find that will remove those air bubbles. No problem. And that's basically all we can do for now. And just get a little bit nearer. You just about see that shine there without it pouring out everywhere. So we've got our resin in. Now I just need to get a little cover of some description, a little plastic food container. I'll just pop that over that like that and then just leave that. We'll come back in 24 hours. Right, it's a good 24 hours later. You can see from that I've added a bit of ribbon, bit of cord, bit of string, just to tie it up to the tree with. And that's it, this little project is finished. Now you can just about see that resin on there, lovely shine, nice and solid. And that's it, we are done. Just nice little projects these. It's only 4.5 inches by 3.5, I believe. But that's certainly going to last a lot longer in that resin than having just a cardboard on its own. Just nice little fun projects with small pieces of wood that you've probably got left over. I managed to find something like this off a previous project, and you can glue that to the front or even feed it through the hole. Just make yourself a bit more of a decoration like so. It's entirely up to you. So that's it, this little project is over. So it's a routed out white oak. We used a template off a Christmas card. We routed it out with CNC bits, cleaned out with end milling bits and the odd straight metric bit. Boiled linseed oil, quick spray over, just give that a little shine. And then we inlaid it all with clear resin, craft resin, let it set overnight, 24 hours. And that's it, this little project is finished. And it measures in roughly 4.5 inches by 3.5 inches. Okay, thank you very much for watching.